Hello students, today we're doing inquiry 5.2. We'll be observing, drawing, and measuring an onion cell. In lesson 5, we are reviewing the parts of the cell. We've already done some of the inquiries for looking at cells under the microscope back in our last unit, but this time we're going to take a different approach and we're going to look at the cells of an onion. So think back to the parts of a plant cell, parts of an animal cell, things like nucleus, cell membrane, cell wall, chloroplast, ribosomes, all those different components of the cell. Our question for today, what are the components of an onion cell? Is an onion a plant or an animal? Well, onions are actually plants, so for our hypothesis, if onion is a plant, then its cells must contain blank. So think about what onion cells might have that maybe the animal cells don't have. Because plant and animal cells have a lot of things in common. They have nucleus, they have cell membranes, they have cytoplasm, they have vacuoles, they have ribosomes and things like that. So think about something that this onion cell might have so that we would know that it was a plant cell. Okay, our materials are found on page 65 and our procedures are found on page 70 to 71. And your data today is going to be a microscope drawing. Before we do our microscope drawing, let's take a look at how we would prepare for looking at the onion cells under the microscope. In our procedures in the book on page 71, it shows some pictures that show the steps of how to prepare a slide. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can take a better look at that. Okay, we will be dyeing the onion cells with Lugol solution. Lugol solution in this case is used to stain the cells so that they can be better seen under the microscope. And we would take a chunk of onion and we would break it apart, and when you break it apart you should be able to peel off a little bit of onion skin. That onion skin is actually the leaf's epidermis. It's a thin membrane kind of layer, and we would put that thin piece on our slide in the Lugol solution, and then we would put a cover slip over it. So when we look at the onion under the microscope, here you see an example of the onion, and this would be on high power. This would be 400x, and you can see some of the cell parts. All of these kind of rectangular structures, each of these little box-shaped things, are all separate onion cells. Within an onion cell, you're going to have the cell wall surrounding it, and that's what you see there, the darker, bolder line. That would be the cell wall. And then the little layer right under that would be the cell membrane. Then you can vaguely see a vacuole right here. But what's most obvious inside the cell is the nucleus of this cell, and you can see the nucleus in some of these other cells. They are a darker spot. They look dark green in these pictures because of the stain. And then all of this empty space where all of these different cell organelles float, they float in the cytoplasm. So although we don't actually see the cytoplasm, we see evidence of the cytoplasm in the cell. Okay, so on your lab report, you would need to draw what the onion cells look like under the microscope and label at least 3 of the cell parts that you can see in that microscope view. So on your microscope drawing, this was on 400x, and you can put onion leaf cells as your title on the second row. Okay, when you complete your microscope drawing, you have a few analysis questions to answer. And then you have a few vocabulary words that relate to not just onion cells, but plant cells in general. And then for your conclusion, you should summarize why the onion cell is considered a plant cell. Use some evidence that we saw from our microscope drawing. Now, we did not see chloroplasts because the onion is the root part of the onion plant, and roots are underground, and so there's no need for them to have chloroplast. But you can state that in your conclusion. But we did know that it was a plant because it had cell wall, and we know animal cells do not have a cell wall. So in your conclusion, summarize why or what type of cell the onion leaves were from, and give some evidence for why. I hope you have a great day. If you have any questions, make sure to message me.